He's like a simulcasting YouTuber. Welcome anyone who's streaming the simulcast link on YouTube. This is just a test and to make sure the YouTube link is functioning. We'll be starting shortly. Thanks. Oh, but if they're sitting at the table, they won't be. You guys come on up and join who's presenting. You guys get in the order you want to be in or whatever. And we need one more chair. All right, those of you who are on YouTube simulcasting, we will be starting shortly. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be starting in just a moment. Vince, you think we're ready to go? Everybody's on? Okay, super. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome all of the youth virtual conference participants, audience members, folks who are streaming in whatever city you are at in the world. Thank you so much for joining in. We're very excited to be hosting the fourth youth virtual conference. This year's topic is climate and sustainability. My name is Ryan Huppert. I am the principal here at City High Middle School in Grand Rapids Public Schools in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we are also a United Nations University RCE member. So want to thank the UNU RCE and the Youth Network for being an associated partner. Let's go ahead and talk about the conference objectives. So the objectives for today While we're getting started, just making sure everyone's getting their technology set and that we have 5 actions that we need. Hopefully everybody can hear me well and see me well. And if you have any issues, just post those in the comment thread. So this year's Youth Virtual Conference objectives. The conference was created to give students the perspective and practice of a more global dialogue. So the hope is that they will better understand some of the unique climate challenges which are facing our communities, regions, and the world, and reveal and embrace some of the universal themes of sustainability, such as dialogue and collaboration. So as we know, these wicked problems of sustainability really surpass borders and languages, and we need to come together as a global community to solve these problems, which you all as the youth will be challenged with solving as really the leaders of tomorrow. So we thank you guys for participating and taking on the challenge. So students, please make note of some of those universal themes of sustainability you see. Okay, so as technology does, it is a little bit hard to hear, so we're continue to speak in it at all, Vince? Would you like me to speak? Does it help if I speak more closely into the microphone? If the test or of the other sites who are remotely connected, if you could let me know if the sound is better when I speak more closely into the microphone, please let me know if that's working better. All right, so it looks like Portland can hear us. Was it improved when I spoke more closely into the microphone for Portland? If you guys could just let us know if that's better, speaking really closely to the microphone, that would help. You said it's the same. Okay, he's saying the mic is breaking. All right, we're going to give it another shot here as I finish the introductions, and hopefully we can sort out all of the audio. So site locations for this year's conference. Each year we have different participants from around the world. We're hosting the conference here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the United States of America. We also have folks in Minna, Nigeria. We're going to be presenting. Thank you guys for tuning in Nigeria. We also have Portland, Oregon with us today in the United States of America, and from the west coast of Costa Rica, the La Paz School is presenting from Potrero in Costa Rica. So thank you all to the site participants. So for the conference agenda, Vince, do you have this PowerPoint up so they can see it? That way they can get eyes on the agenda. That might help. Great, thank you. So for the conference agenda today, we are going to finish the introduction with rules of engagement. So just a reminder that when you are not presenting from your site, that if you mute your mic, it's helpful, so there's not feedback. And then when you want to pose a question, presenting, please make sure that your microphone is turned on. The presentation order is going to be Grand Rapids, Michigan going first. Next, we'll have Minna, Nigeria, followed by Portland, Oregon, and then finally Costa Rica. Just a reminder, each presentation should be about 15 minutes. If you go a minute or two over, that's fine, but we want to respect everybody's time and make sure that there's time for some questions and answers following each presentation. And I will help moderate that so we can make sure we're hearing from some of the sites who have questions. And we will then follow up with a moderated dialogue and question and answer at the very end with some of the kind of lasting impressions. And we'll follow up with conclusion and closing remarks. All right, the rules of engagement, if I just want to, do I need to reiterate a few of those things, Vince? Do you think that's playing into some of the audio at all? Yeah. So just a reminder for the rules of using only one microphone and audio speaker per site. So you guys will be sharing your microphone. Please remember to mute the microphone when you're not presenting, and that may help with your audio as well. And we also encourage all of the students to pose some rich questions. So as you're listening to people present, make note of questions, and we can make sure that there's time for those to be posed and answered. And we'll moderate that, so following the presentation that students have an opportunity to pose those questions from your site. So I'll call on a site to pose a question, and then we can make sure that your feed is and that your microphone is turned on your end, and then pose the question and then turn your microphone off. All right, at this time, I think we are going to just check the audio one last time. Is everyone able to hear? If not, please make note of the closed captioning at the bottom. So hopefully that will be of assistance if you're having some audio difficulties. So in just a moment, I will introduce the student group presenting from Grand Rapids, and hopefully we can get the audio feed dialed in here before we bring them up. It's worth taking the time to get the audio right, so we'll see if there's any last adjustments to make. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the youth group from Grand Rapids here. And it looks like we have good audio from almost all of the sites. One of the sites is struggling to get the audio, but we would encourage you guys to please make note of the closed captioning so you can follow along with the text if you're having difficulty hearing. So at this time, I would like to welcome up the juniors from City High Middle School presenting, and this is part of a larger course, 2-year course in environmental systems and societies that they're taking, and so we'd like to welcome them up and hear from them. Come on up, Nina.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Youth Virtual Conference this year. We're very excited to speak and listen and represent Michigan and the United States. We are all students in 11th grade at City High Middle in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and as Mr. Huppert mentioned, we are part of an Environmental Systems and Societies class. We'll cover some of the climate issues of our region today. I'm Nina.
Hi, I'm Rose, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about where we live, West Michigan, more specifically Grand Rapids. Our population is 198,829. Our location, we have some interesting geographical features. Specifically, we have a lot of interesting water near us. We have the Grand River, which runs through our city, and then we are 40 kilometers east of Lake Michigan, which means we get a lot of lake effect snow. For our climate, we have a humid continental climate, which means we have warm, humid summers and snowy, cold winters. And some of our economics, really, in the past, we were called Furniture City because we had a lot of furniture that was produced here and then carried down the river elsewhere. We also have a lot of aviation and automobiles produced. And one of our biggest is we have a lot of fruit production here, specifically because of our climate. So now I'll move on to a little bit more of an analysis of our climate. So first we can talk about how our climate has changed in the past. So if we look at what our climate's like now and refer it to what it was like back in like the 1950s, one of the biggest things is our annual precipitation has increased on average by 4.5% and up to 25% in some cities. So that's a lot more precipitation than we had in the past. Our average annual temperature has also increased by 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 0.67 degrees Celsius. And since we're near the Great Lakes, we have a lot of things happening with them. The summer surface water temperatures increased by 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit or 2.5 degrees Celsius on Lake Superior. And this just shows that the Great Lakes are thawing earlier and freezing later, which really affects our climate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dagan McClure-Sycamore. And since we've talked about an overview of Western Michigan and how our climate has changed up until this point, I'm just going to be talking about how our climate is forecasted to change. So according to something called the Grand Rapids Climate Resiliency Report, which was conducted by the Western Michigan Environmental Action Council, which is a really cool organization here in Grand Rapids, by 2022, the temperature will have risen by 2.6% in Western Michigan, and by 2042, the temperature will have risen by 8.5%. And those numbers look kind of small, but in reality, those are huge changes for our climate. And going along, there will be longer and hotter dry seasons in the summer. There's going to be a lot more extreme weather events in general. So as for Michigan winters, there's going to be much more extreme freeze-thaw cycles, which we've all seen here in Western Michigan this past winter. So going on, let's talk about where the majority of energy is generated and consumed in our region originates from. So in Michigan, our electrical power primarily comes from three main sources, which are coal, nuclear fission, and natural gas. So as of 2017, coal-powered plants are responsible for about 36.5% of Michigan's electricity. And Michigan's use of coal results in greenhouse gas emissions that are more than 20% above the national average, which is a huge difference. And this reliance on coal and nuclear energy is, without a doubt, Western Michigan's major contribution to climate change. So this means that our greatest potential solution in order to combat climate change is alternative energy sources. Hey there, I'm Adam. I'll be speaking about how climate change actually impacts us in West Michigan. So first of all, as previously mentioned, we've had large increases in our precipitation and our intense storms. And all of us recently have experienced, in this past few weeks, we've had 10 days of closed school due to terrible weather conditions and a state of emergency. And so, especially in this place like Michigan, where we experience increased precipitation and intense winters, we typically are accustomed to more snow. However, these increases are even more than we were able to handle. So our most intense storms now drop 31% more precipitation than they did 50 years ago. So this increased precipitation on these intense storms can damage our infrastructure, our transportation, and even our agriculture. So also, as well as precipitation, sometimes in the form of snow, sometimes in the form of rain. Either way, it comes down and it has huge effects in the form of flooding. And flooding not only causes erosion, but also causes a lot of runoff farms, things like nitrates, phosphorus, E. coli, and other pollutants, and they are entering our waterways. And so not only does this lower the quality of our drinking water, but also impacts our water systems, our ecosystems. So with algal blooms, which is essentially a growth of algae as a result of runoff, and one algal bloom in a nearby lake, in one of our Great Lakes, was so large that it caused closure of drinking water in the city of Toledo, which is nearby. So not only is massive changes to the water ecosystems, but also to our forests as well. So a lot of our native trees are having to move north because of increased temperatures, and a lot of trees are dying off due to increased heat stress in the summer and longer seasons for damaging every year. More insects staying out for longer, doing more damage to our trees. And as previously mentioned, we are very reliant on agriculture in our economy. So a larger growing season may actually increase agriculture production in some crops, but extreme weather events and other stresses related to climate change are expected to decrease our overall agriculture productivity. And that could have massive effects for our entire community, not just our ecosystem. And lastly, climate change even can direct Michigan residents directly, affect them. So hotter summers and colder winters can pose health risks from heat flashes and extremely cold temperatures. And the number of heat waves we experienced this last summer was actually triple what it has been for the annual average. Also, warmer temperatures can contribute to worsened air quality, resulting in longer allergy seasons and more possibility of vector of airborne diseases. And flooding also increases the risk of sewage and septic failures, which may cause water-related illness.
Hi, my name is Bailey, and I'm going to be talking about some long-term and small-scale solutions to potential problems that we are facing today. So a big one is switching to renewable energy sources. While we do have wind farms and we do get some of our energy through solar panels, there is a big opportunity to increase these. So there's potential for solar panels at landfills, filtration plants, city building, parking garages, etc. And these solar panels can last 25 to 30 years, so this is an investment that's worthwhile. There's also potential for solar farms throughout South and Western Michigan. And there's a company called Michigan Saves Inc., which offers low interest loans for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects to nonprofits, families, and businesses. And this would really help increase the amount of solar panels we have, because 61% of the public said they would install solar panels if it was affordable. So Michigan Saves Inc. would really help get this going and increase the amount of energy we get from solar panels. And wind power. We have wind farms throughout Michigan, but they're mainly on the east side. So we could move these more west and south. And biomass. So burning agricultural, animal, and food waste, sludge, and plants to create energy. Both wind power and biomass would help with job opportunities and with our economy. So we can also reduce greenhouse gases, increase the amount of sustainable buildings in the city, and introduce better farming solutions. Since we do produce a lot of fruit, organic farming and IPM, integrated pest management, would help combat our problems. And with livestock, we can integrate trees as well as crops together. And for small scale, we can increase the amount of opportunities for students to learn and take action. And something that we do here at City is we have the fellowship, which allows for composting and other opportunities to help. We can increase bike lanes, pathways, bus routes, and stops to promote a greener way of traveling and increasing the amount of volunteer opportunities. We do have the Mayor's Greening Initiative, where people from around the city come together and plant trees, and increasing the amount of composting and recycling we have in the city, which would help both the economy and the ecosystems around us.
All right, so you just heard some of the potential solutions from Bailey, but now we have to ask, are any of these solutions currently being implemented? First, let's look at the stakeholders in the Michigan climate battle, the most important being agricultural and governmental. They are important because they hold the most power for funding and collaboration in implementing solutions. There are four main groups of stakeholders in the movement: root growers, field crop producers, state/federal government staff, and agribusiness professionals. In a Michigan State University extension program, prominent stakeholders from each of these groups were interviewed. They all felt that it is the responsibility of their industry to adapt successfully to future climate variability, despite diverse beliefs, and all expressed further engagement with university research could be used in a management decision-making. Overall, we see that stakeholders are willing to participate in a sustainable future, and that is essential. However, what else is looking positive for West Michigan? Well, recent midterm elections here have put a Democratic climate-aware Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer, our current sitting governor, has been a proponent for changes in the state as a response to climate change. Now elected, she's seeking to fulfill these goals: clean up Michigan's drinking water, protect the Great Lakes, enter Michigan back into the U.S. Climate Alliance Agreement independently, and hiring experts on climate to advise her. Outside of local legislation, independent such as the MSU College of Agriculture and Natural Resources have pledged to take further action, but this time in the field of education. Their mission is in assisting Michigan producers and agribusiness professionals as they address changes in the climate by our previously stated stakeholders. Programs such as these give reports to stakeholders to encourage the implementation of sustainable solutions that Bailey had proposed. Overall, there's still work to do, but ultimately we know it's working in our favor to help West Michigan.
Hello, I'm Olivia. So you may be wondering how our area is responding to the Global Sustainability Development Goal of climate action. Well, Grand Rapids specifically is very dedicated to maintaining and perpetuating sustainability in our area and has already begun to implement sustainability goals, such as working to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions by 2021, as well as doubling water reuse and recovery by 2021 as well. We also would like to increase energy use from renewable energy sources from the current 30% it is today to 100% by 2025. The city also would like to increase the tree canopy by 40%, which would help with combating carbon emissions.
Okay, so the Rapid, our busing system, has hybrid buses, which partially run off compressed natural gas. And by 2025, we're looking at having all the buses run off compressed natural gas. We also want to reduce the amount of landfill contributions and increase the amount of recycling opportunities around the Grand Rapids area, such as requiring special events to have recycling containers at the venue. We also have Oak Industrial Drive, 429 solar panels installed, and in just 8 years, it will have paid back. And there's the PACE program, which is an incentive that helps businesses become more sustainable.
While the previously stated solutions are wonderful in theory, we also must first create positive change socially in the public perception of climate change. And many people don't understand that climate change isn't just going to affect certain people or certain areas of our lives. It will affect widespread, the entire globe, really. And so in order to create a change in public perception, we can create education programs that would increase understanding of this topic. These programs would foster an understanding that climate change can affect not only just our climate and our environment, but also our economy. Michigan is very based on tourism on our coastal cities, as well as our agricultural sector, again, because we farm and we produce fruit. Educating farmers on sustainable farming practices would also benefit and help with combating climate change, as well as education. Creating incentives such as tax exemptions for businesses who meet a certain standard would also foster a more positive mindset just in the business community as well as just generally.
All right, so now that Olivia and Bailey have presented some of the possible solutions that we have in West Michigan to manage the impacts of climate change, it is also important to acknowledge the potential obstacles we might face locally in implementing our solutions. Most of these obstacles come in the area of society and politics. First, let's look at local legislation. The Republican Party, who as a party have views commonly denying need for sustainability, dominate both the Michigan local legislatures. In our voting system, this implies that any laws proposed to take sustainable action could be denied from being implemented, or any law against sustainable action could be passed. One example is the proposition of senators to eliminate lessons on climate change from K-12 schools in Michigan. If passed, this could potentially eliminate proposed solutions on education. Another example is the in-place Michigan House Bill 4205, which bars the state from adopting environmental protections more stringent than federal rules set on the environment. This could be an issue because the federal government right now has many leaders that have openly opposed national action to reduce climate change. In 2017, the US officially resigned from the International Paris Climate Agreement that recognized climate issues and set goals for all countries in the world. Domestically, funding for the U.S. Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy in the U.S. was cut by 72% in 2018. This summarizes the issue many opponents have, which is the use of our money to fund sustainable living. Overall, as we propose solutions, we must keep in mind the social and political implications of them and potential obstacles we might run into.
So to conclude, if nothing has changed and if the climate of our region continues to follow this path that it's currently on, temperature will rise by 2.6% in 2022, 8.5% by 2042, and we'll have more extreme changes in weather. There's going to be hotter and drier summers, and as previously stated, there's going to be more extreme freeze and thaw cycles during our winters. So this can, will, and already is harming our economy and the surrounding ecosystems. And potential solutions include increasing renewable energy, alternative energies, LED energy involvement, and increasing our sustainable farming. So Grand Rapids has committed to a sustainability plan, and the state of Michigan has also pledged to uphold the Paris Climate Agreement. So while we do have to acknowledge the political and social and economic obstacles in our way, Western Michigan is taking positive steps towards a more sustainable future, environmentally, economically, and socially.
So to conclude, these are the major sources that we use in our research today, and I would just like to thank you all for listening.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, students from Grand Rapids. Nice job. Appreciate that very much. So at this time, I would like to go around the participants in the various sites to see if they have questions. So we'll take those questions in the order of presentation. So if we could hear from Minna, Nigeria, if you guys have any questions of the presenters, if you could unmute your microphone and please pose those questions now.
Okay. Good evening, all. We are among the youth participating in this year's Youth Virtual Conference under the auspices of RCE. As it is required, Our presentation is guided on this year's theme, tagged A Regional Perspective on Sustainability and Climate. First, it's necessary to introduce ourselves. And as you can see from the screen, I am Aisha Lajiki and I'm in grade 11. With me here are Aisha Abdullahi.
Aisha Ridwan Muhammad, grade 10.
I'm Aisha Abdullahi, grade 11.
We are going straight into our presentation the month's description. And as we've said earlier, we are students from both secondary school and members of RCE. Mina is located in the north central part of Nigeria and is the capital city of Niger State. There are 25 local governments in my region, and Mina happens to be in Chachara local government area. There are different ethnic groups, but the three that are widely spoken are Igagi, Nupe, and Hausa language. According to 2006 census, Mina has an estimated population of over 2. Mina is the seat of the Federal University of Technology, College of Education, and other institutions. The distance to Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, is about 150 kilometers. Now to the discussion proper. Our presentation seeks to answer the 10 suggested questions on this year's virtual conference so that we can analyze our understanding of sustainable energy systems. These questions are attempted and discussed in our slides. The major source of energy that is generated and consumed in my region is gotten from the hydro source. This is because the River Niger, being the longest river in Africa, and East River Kaduna, being its tributary, flows through our region, and are consequently harnessed through the construction of hydro dams at Shiroro, Jeba, and Kenji. The fourth dam is the Sungeri Dam, and it's under construction.
In addition, according to what my colleague had said, the sources of my region's energy greatly affect the environment, economy, and society. The major effect, as you can see from the slide, is flooding, mostly recorded along the hydroelectric dams. In most cases, communities living along the dams are usually flooded whenever excess water is released from the dam. Hence, it destroys many farmland, houses, animals, cultivated crops, and other infrastructure. You can see from the picture here, shows the part of the community living along the hydroelectric dams that was flooded. The family's property is consumed by water. Another effect is likely outbreak of waterborne diseases such as cholera, bilharzia, which affects many communities.
In our region, a number of efforts are introduced to promote the use of renewable energy, and several of them have been successful. As you can see from the slide, our state government made effort to provide solar and wind-powered electricity, especially in small scale, like the solar-powered rural electrification in Tunganjika, Madama local government. Also, there are more than 10 RCE school clubs that are created. The sensor project, where over 2,000 trees were planted with the hope of addressing exchange phenomena.
In addition, RCE Milan, Nigeria, has planted many trees in green areas in the state capitals, which is now known as Project Aisha Lenu Conservatory and the Children's Park. We also give kudos to our mentors who are up and doing in keeping us abreast of latest issues relating to climate and sustainable energy efforts. The use of these renewable energy sources in my region is faced with many challenges. Among these include slow and inconsistent government policies as it relates to energy. Most consumers have insufficient awareness of the use of this renewable energy. All directives of energy and power supply in my region come from the federal capital, and the cost of purchasing these renewable energy sources is high. And lastly, the communities constituting mostly the government, peasants, and some individuals are caught in the wheel of progress of using energy sources.
Currently, movement as it relates to renewable energy is to achieve it at its macro level. That is why, in our region, Many stakeholders are advocating for a more functional renewable energy system that is seen to be safer and cheaper in the long run. Some of these stakeholders are civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations. Our RCE here in MENA is very active in carrying out awareness campaign on the need to move to a more sustainable energy. The GIZ from Germany is implementing renewable energy projects for communities that are far away from the national grid. At the same time, government on its part is partnering with international organizations in areas of expertise and funding.
In our region, the potential impact of hydroelectric power plants on climate change are listed on the slide. Presence of dams usually lead to serious flooding, which destroys habitat, deprive ecosystem nutrients, increase wastewater, and displace poor communities. It also releases greenhouse gases, destroys carbon sinks in wetlands as well as water bodies.
The motivating factor that makes my region choose these renewable energy sources, especially the hydro and solar, is because of the availability of water almost all year round, and our location in a tropical environment where abundant solar energy is generated. As a result of being a federal state and colony, our choice of energy is a legacy distributed from Britain and Europe. Thus, even after independence, our choice of energy is a product of the federal system presently in operation, where all directives come from the center.
Furthermore, the major challenges faced by consumers and political system to determine when change can be made include 1. Insufficient power supply, which resulted to the closure of many small and medium-scale enterprises. 2. High cost of purchasing renewable energy. 3. Low level of awareness by consumers. And finally, lack of political will on the part of government.
To provide the most leverage and find the most traction within our region in relation to renewable energy sources, a number of potential solutions have been identified. These include the need for public-private collaboration, especially to achieve a more sustainable renewable energy source. And secondly, the government should take more proactive measures toward harnessing this identified potential so that we can generate energy from renewable sources. And lastly, based organizations, CBOs, non-governmental organizations, NGOs should increase their tempo in spreading out to various communities on the need to embrace renewable energy sources.
In conclusion, climate change phenomenon in our region is a big issue that should be mainstreamed into various sectors of both regional and community development plans. It is our hope that the outcome of this conference will come out with a community that will seek to achieve the 7th and 8th goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. The 7th goal being achieving an affordable and clean energy to go extra miles to achieve a decent work and economic potential.
Thank you so much, Minna. If you could please mute your microphone. All right, we'll see if the audio comes through. First of all, I think I'd like to make a point and also ask a question, and then we'll go to the other conference sites to see if they have questions. Does the efforts to reduce your greenhouse gases and the issues with your energy production, you mentioned there was problems with awareness. Are the same problems faced with climate change awareness, or are people very much aware of a climate that is changing in your region? And if the climate is changing, what does that look like?
You want to help?
Oh, okay.
Based on awareness, we are here on behalf of RCE to support our young ones. The question you asked on awareness, you should appreciate the fact that some of these dams, 3 of them were constructed over 30 years ago. And during that time, there wasn't much what we call environmental impact. However, one of the things that we're advocating now is that of evaluation of the effect of this dam over the years. For the record, Mina and most of the communities along the river Niger in our region yearly face flooding. So this issue of environmental awareness is something that we believe we need to have evaluation. And like they mentioned in their presentation, we have a 4th dam that is under construction, and it is the experience from the existing ones that we are now being careful so that there should be a very study, community engagement, and agreement before this thing can take place, so as not to experience this problem that we are experiencing, where the whole community or a lot of communities were displaced completely to another place. So you have environmental consequences of moving people to another place and then submerging the entire region of, with water. Of course, the environmental implication, the political system being completely changed over a very long time. So this is what we are doing, and I believe part of what the RCE is doing, using the school environmental club, is this awareness, so that let them know the implication of, yes, we can think of this as renewable energy, but you must be very careful and you must do a very in-depth analysis of the implications so as to eliminate long-term effect.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we would like to see if Portland is able to come online to ask any questions of RCE Minna. So is a representative in Portland interested in asking a question from Oregon?
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I did have a question. This is applicable to both Nigeria and the Grand Rapids that presented earlier, but I was curious if your school individually is doing anything to aid climate change.
How have been contributing to reducing this effect of climate change. Some of these activities that we engage in our school is planting of trees in the surrounding so that the effect of climate change will be reduced. We even have the young farmers club in our school that plant crops, cover crops, and even trees to protect the effects of climate change in future. Thank you.
I can answer for Grand Rapids, and students, if I miss anything, please let me know. I think the most important thing that we're doing here at City within our school to address climate change is educating people about the potential drastic impacts of our changing climate. That's probably number one, is creating awareness. But additionally, there's things that we're doing on a physical level as well, such as the planting of trees, the use of native landscaping on our campus. We've also installed energy efficient lighting systems to reduce our energy usage. We also been implementing a composting program to eliminate with the use of landfills to produce methane gas, which is a major contributor to greenhouse gas and climate change effects. I think those are some of the probably more significant things that we're doing here in our school community. Thanks for the question.
Cool.
How about Costa Rica? If someone in Costa Rica would like to pose a question, let's see if we can hear from Costa Rica. Give them just a moment to respond. So you, all participants can also type in the question in the chat column. So if you'd like to pose a question by typing it in, we'll see that just fine as well. All right, well, we will, let's move on to see if we can have Costa Rica's feed brought up, and we will go to Costa Rica for a presentation, and we'll come back to more questions and answers of all the groups at the end. But let's see if we can get the feed from Costa Rica to come up and hear from them. Okay, wonderful. We'll come back to Portland. I just wanted to make sure we were able to get Costa Rica's audio feed. So we'll jump in with Costa Rica, and then we'll finish off with Portland. We can see, let's see if we can hear your audio. So Costa Rica, if you want to try your microphone, and let's see if we can get your audio to come through. All right. Are they speaking? Can we see their camera feed? Or okay, so Costa Rica, we'll come back to you. It looks like your microphone is not activating. When your microphone activates, that turns on the session and your video feed will come through. So Costa Rica, if you want to try to play with your audio. Oh, we just saw, I think it looks like Costa Rica's feed is coming in now. We can see your video, which means your microphone should be working now. I think we can see your video, but we can't hear you. So why don't we wait? All right, we're getting more feed coming through. We can see you very well. Looks like it's hot there because the fans are all on, but we can't hear you yet. All right, so La Paz, we'll let you guys play with your microphones for a few minutes because we can't hear you, and we'll come back to you. But why don't we hear from Portland, Oregon, and we'll bring up Portland's feed. She was come through loud and clear, and then we'll try to come back to La Paz for the concluding presentation.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Mela Gautam, and apologies for my voice, I'm a bit sick today. Hopefully I'm still comprehensible, but I attend the School of Science Technology in Beaverton, Oregon. This is just off of Portland, Oregon, so I feel like I can accurately speak to Portland's climate. And I'm here as a representative as for Gibson. I'm a youth coordinator for the program. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm a senior in high school. All right, so a brief overview about Portland's climate. I feel like, all right, when most people think about Portland, I feel like you all probably imagine like a really, really wet climate, and you're not wrong. It gets pretty rainy here, but climate-wise, in the winter, we usually have a lot of rain, and over the course of the past century or so, the storms have been becoming more intense, and the amount of rainfall has increased, and essentially it's just been more rainfall in like a shorter amount of time, and the summers have become more intense as well. They've become more drier, and there's been an increase in fires as well. So generally the climate in the summer is dry, and the climate in the winter is cold and wet. We don't really see a lot of snow, but it happens occasionally. All right, so a little bit more about our climate. Our water supply is a little bit less vulnerable to the loss of snow because of the warming temperatures. And Portland's groundwater system increases the water system's resilience to climate change. And based on 30-year projections, the water system should be able to continue meeting needs for the human population in Portland, and based on a 30-year projection from today. And due to the increasing air temperatures, we can expect a reduction in snowpacks, and this would definitely affect the water quality for fish because the water is obviously warming in temperature. All right, so what are the causes for climate change? There are three main causes here, and they are pretty similar to some of the ones we've heard before. And the first one would be land use change, and what I mean by this is urbanization primarily. In Portland, there's been a lot of recent development for homes, particularly because people have been moving up here from California. And I'm sorry, the slides are a little bit. All right, so yes, there's been a lot of urbanization here, and people have been moving up here. It's led to a lot more urban development, and this hasn't always been done in the most climate friendly way. People haven't really been incorporating biodiversity within climates, and they haven't really thought about putting in parks like in the middle of communities. It's just been houses and more houses. So that's what I mean by land use change. Fossil fuels, an increase with cars, gasoline, and due to the increase in warmer air temperatures, this has led to a drier climate, which definitely increases the chance of fire, and that's definitely been a big problem for the past couple of years. And the prevalence of fire has definitely increased over the past couple of years as well. You may have heard of this. There was an Eagle Creek fire last year. It was a man-made fire, and it was started by it was initiated by someone who threw a lighter into a huge forest, and it essentially just caught fire. And it took a very, very long time to stop it, and they're still working on restoring the area. But that's another issue that's been going on. The fires have also led to upper respiratory problems such as asthma, and there's been an increase of that over the past couple years as well. All right, so sorry about the title, but we usually see that Portland uses hydropower, coal, and natural gas as like the three main sources of energy, with 40.47% coming from hydropower, and 31.89% coming from coal, and 16.58% coming from natural gas. Other somewhat popular methods of energy include wind and nuclear energy. So you can see that Portland is sort of on the greener side. We are making a change towards renewable resources rather than fossil fuels and coal, with hydropower being one of the main sources of energy. All right, so how is this impacting people in Portland? So as I said before, the fires cause a lot of upper respiratory infections and diseases, and during the peak of the wildfire season this year, which usually is June to early September, we saw about 586 emergency department visits related to asthma and respiratory-related issues, and a 39% increase over the number of expected for that day. And the number has only been increasing over the past couple of years. And we've also seen, because of this, increase in heat-related diseases. This could be heat stroke or other illnesses. And as for illnesses or effects that are caused by the winter sort of element of Portland, would be flooding, because, as I said before, we experience a lot of rain, and the amount of rain has been increasing, and it's been downpouring in a shorter amount of time. So this definitely causes flooding. And because of the wetter climate, it can also increase disease-carrying vectors such as mosquitoes and such. All right, so how is Portland connected with other outside areas? So we are doing a lot of work with Seattle, Washington. This is both because of proximity and location, and we both have pretty similar climates. They also have a lot of rain, and Oregon and Washington typically suffer from the same fire situation. So the city of Seattle City Light, is basically a plan for Seattle, their sustainability plans. And when I was looking through this, I noticed that their sustainability goals are similar to those in Portland. And Portland and Seattle work really closely regarding many climate issues. And like I said before, because of both their similarities in their climate and because of their closeness in location. Another pretty significant group that works closely with Portland would be the UW, or University of Washington, Climate Impacts Group. This is a group that's part of the interdisciplinary research group at the University of Washington, and they study impacts of national climate variability and global warming in the Pacific Northwest. All right, so what are the current movements and proponents of stabilizing climate? So has its own climate action plan, and when I was going through this, I noticed that the main goal here was to have an 80% reduction in climate emission levels by 2050, and this is as compared to 1990. And as of now, we're at like a 22% reduction, so making progress. And the other goal is to have a 40% reduction by 2030. This also contains climate protection initiatives, which result in significant total and per person reductions. So it could be something as simple as getting green living wage jobs as opposed to coal mining jobs or anything that's not super green, perhaps like installing solar panels rather than other things, and renewable energy, etc. It can be as simple as that. So another one would be the Oregon Department of Energy. They specialize in climate change, and specifically in Oregon. They focus on saving energy, developing clean energy resources, and cleaning up the nuclear waste, and all in all, just specializing in mitigating climate change. So what are the 2050 goals according to the Climate Action Plan for Portland? One, we want it to be prosperous. So this would involve providing greener jobs. Like I said before, this could be like green living wage jobs, like installing solar panels rather than doing something that would further harm the climate. And another factor would be to save money and resources by utilizing energy saving appliances. And you could also share and rent vehicles and other goods rather than buying your own. You could carpool and other ways like that. Number 2, we would like to stay connected. So Portland already has some pretty good public transportation. It's relatively cheap and it's very accessible to a lot of the major cities in downtown. Sorry, a lot of the major employment places in downtown. And we also have different methods of public transportation. We've got the metro, and we have the buses, and the train pretty much goes everywhere. So it's already quite good, maintain it, and it's clean. But we were thinking about, well, by being connected, that would have to probably be exemplified. So public transportation and making sure that it's super making sure that it's accessible to every employment center, particularly those that employ a lot of people, because that's probably who's going to be taking the public transport. Also, we would like it to be pedestrian and bike friendly, and it should probably contain effective vehicles like energy efficient cars. So the third would be healthy and resilient. So this would be affordable housing, which are comfortable, healthy, and durable, and they would probably have to withstand the natural disasters that are likely to occur in the area. Like I said before, that would probably be flooding, fires, etc. So we could also implement natural areas and urban forests within the community. This sort of ties back into my other point with urban development in Portland. So by implementing more biodiversity within communities, you sort of encourage people to step outside and learn more about the environment. So that sort of encourages a more healthy lifestyle. So that would be another part to encourage. And in relation to that topic, backyard gardens, farmers markets, community-based food programs, all of that would probably be a good step in the right direction towards a healthy lifestyle, because all the produce is local, and that sort of eliminates the pollution from transportation, and the food is also fresh, so that contributes to a healthier lifestyle. And buildings should also be able to recover quickly from natural disasters. And the fourth goal would be equitability, and each resident should have easy access to a walkable or bikeable neighborhood, and they should also have employment for everybody. And minority communities should also be more involved with climate-related programs than they are. So some solutions that have come up are the Portland Clean Energy Initiative campaign and getting youth involved. So as for the Portland Clean Energy Initiative campaign, this is specifically created and led by communities of color, and this fosters a healthy climate and cleaner air and improved affordability for communities of color. So that has been a significant step in the right direction, especially based on the last goal of equitability that we saw in the last slide. As for getting youth involved, there are an increase of programs and internships to sort of learn more about the environment, and research opportunities for high school students in environmental science, as well as field trips to sort of understand the climate and climate variability and how everything is changing with respect to climate change. All of that would be a good solution. All right, so here's a summary of considered solutions. So stormwater is one of the significant point sources of climate change, mostly because we get a lot of rain in a very short amount of time, and that's sort of been changing over the past couple of years. And this sort of leads to pollutants being discharged, and you could just place this a maximum cap on pollutants by doing so. And another one would be sewage management. and by fixing that problem, the water quality wouldn't be compromised anymore. And the reason this is a problem is, like I said before, we get a lot of rain in a short amount of time, so the flooding, and that leads to a sewage problem sometimes. So what are the unknown ways of climate change? I wouldn't really say that there are ways that we don't know that the climate is changing here, because Portland, I would say for here, like, people for the most part are pretty aware of climate change, and it's, I would say it's pretty safe to say that it's mostly public opinion by now. And however, the only thing that I would say is that the rapidity of climate change is unknown. And I think people understand that the climate is changing, it's just that they don't understand how quickly it's changing. So one thing that could be helpful in this situation would be graphs and images and pictures, because I feel like that tells a much more powerful story than just words. For example, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the program ArcGIS, but it's essentially a mapping software, and you can show change over time, and it's oftentimes used for climate change. But you can see the change in a location in like 1990 to 2016, and it can really shock you to see the change in, to see the difference between the two time frames. So that could be a good solution to aid in the rapidity of change, while the fact that people may be unaware of that. So what are the obstacles and solutions? Like I said before, the obstacle is that the imminent urgency of climate change can't be seen. And for some people, climate change is just this distant problem that can be changed in the future, or it's not really our problem right now. But I feel like I said before, images, pictures, software like ArcGIS can really change that. And solutions would probably be stakeholder engagement. And this is mostly because stakeholders just have a lot of power to influence success. And local organizations that advocate for climate change can also spread awareness and educate people about the severity and imminent urgency of climate change. And utilizing graphs and images of real-time results can also help to convey this urgency. So who are the subject matter experts? The first three, NOAA, which is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the NWS, or the National Weather Service, and the NASA, or National Aeronautics and Space Administration. All three of those are US government agencies, and they all do a lot for climate change. But those are pertinent to the US as a whole rather than specifically to Portland, Oregon. But specifically in Portland, there's the Climate Action Coalition, which is also called 350PDX, and I believe their website is 350pdx.org. And this is essentially just an alliance of community-based
Looks like you were almost done there, Portland, but your audio feed cut out. All right, well, we'll give just a moment to see if that will come back online. It was a very good signal up until that last moment. Looks like maybe the signal went down there. Yeah, some kind of a connectivity issue. All right, let's see. If we can bring up the La Paz feed and see if they've had any better luck with their audio. And then after that, we can wrap up with some questions and answers. Hopefully we can get them up and running. you want to pose a prompt in the chat, Vince, and see if we can get them to see that? We'll try one more time to see if Costa Rica can unmute their microphone and see if we can get their audio video feed to come up. All right. Well, we see you. Let's see if we can hear you. Can't hear you, but we sure can see you. Any suggestions on their audio settings, Vince? Maybe, yeah, if you want to type it in the feed, I don't think I'll do it justice. All right, while they're configuring that, I see Maida is back online from Portland, so we put the questions and answers of Portland while Costa Rica tries to configure their audio. So let's give them a moment to do that. And then Maida, we do have a question for you from Grand Rapids. Bailey, if you want to come up and pose the question for Maida, we'd appreciate it if you could take a moment and answer it.
So you talked about how there wasn't a lot of sustainable development going on in Portland. Is there any organizations that are promoting sustainable development, or are there any programs that allow businesses to become more sustainable? And if so, what impact are they making?
Yeah, there are, but they're pretty new, so I wouldn't say that their impact is like super recent, but they exist, and they're working on more like the newest development. But the ones that I'm aware of, at least around where I live, there aren't too many. But in the Portland like downtown itself, like I know about a couple of them, and I don't know what they're called, but I'm sure on 350pdx.org, which of the websites I mentioned towards the end of my presentation. But yes, they do exist. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Let's see if RCE Minna in Nigeria has a question for you. If Nigeria has a question, you can unmute your microphone. We'll give them just a moment to see if they have a question for you, Maida.
Okay. I also did have a works cited slide at the end, but my presentation crashed. If you needed to see that.
No problem, thank you. Other questions from Grand Rapids? Do we have anybody else who'd like to pose a question for the Portland folks? From Maida in Portland? All right, we've got somebody who, yeah, has a question. I can ask it, or if you want to come up and pose it either way, Mr. Isley.
You talk about flooding, which is caused by excess rain. No, my question is, don't you have enough drainage system or water outlets to prevent that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you rephrase the question?
You talk about flooding, which was caused by excess rainfall. My question here is, don't you have enough drainage system or water outlets to prevent that?
Oh, yeah, we have. It's just the flooding. Yeah, the flooding problem. There's been there are water outlets. It's just that it's become like more of a problem recently because of the heavy rainfall. But there are water outlets to sort of mitigate that, and they're coming up with solutions to sort of take the water out of the streets. But like I said, it's sort of a problem from recent years. So I think they're still sort of coming up with a solution to that. And it's still a work in progress. So did that answer your question?
A question for Grand Rapids. How are you coping with a president that doesn't believe in climate change? This question is going to Grand Rapids. I said, how are you coping with a president that doesn't believe in climate change?
Yes, we got your question. Do you guys want to come up and talk a little bit about what does that look like, and how do we deal with people who don't believe in climate change? It's somewhat of a political issue. And I can help answer as well. Thank you.
So as I out, we do have a federal government right now that is against any action on climate change, but some groups that have been trying to push back on the federal government are definitely individual states, because individual states have pledged to enter back into the Paris Climate Agreement and have local solutions in order to fight climate change individually instead of reliance on the federal government. However, within the federal government, there's definitely still parties such as the House of Representatives that are fighting for action on climate change. And because of our checks and balances, they can push back on opponents, and while opponents can also push back on them. So we're definitely fighting locally, but it's a bigger problem on the federal level.
And I can also add to that, I think for Michigan and for the United States in general, and this probably applies to a larger scale, is that addressing climate change is not something that a lot of corporate interest is backing, because it directly and negatively impacts profits for corporations that utilize energy and are obviously making their businesses through the use of and production of energy. So finding ways to make climate change a profitable enterprise through supporting renewable energy industries is going to be very important here. Climate change is linked to a bit of a divisive political debate in the United States, and so education and awareness comes slowly, but it's happening, and through science and through campaigns such as these. So it's a long road, but we're making gains. And then we also had a question for Maida in Portland. And the question is, I think nationally, Portland, Oregon, is seen as a leader in progressive environmental movements. If you have any sense of why that is, but either regardless, do you think that you have a better position to make progressive reforms for the environment? And is that perception that we have of Portland being progressive environmentally, how's that being realized in Portland?
So I think you're definitely correct there. Portland is definitely one of the more progressive environmental states in the U.S. And I think this is a little bit because of the hippie culture here, but I mean, yeah, but people are generally very, very environmentally conscious, and a lot of the buildings downtown are also very environmentally conscious, and a lot of the school curriculum also revolves around system development and how to sort of work towards that attainable goal. And I would say it's kind of made me more aware of climate change as a whole by living here, because everybody else is so aware of it. So because everybody else is aware of it, like, it kind of forces you to be aware of it as well. And it also encourages you to sort of take your own steps in the right direction, if that makes any sense, because everybody else is encouraging you to do the same. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you very much. Well, let's give one last chance for Costa Rica to see if they've got their audio feed working. Looks like they say it is working, so why don't we try to have them unmute their microphone, and we'll bring up the feed from Costa Rica and see if we can get them online. Any activity in Costa Rica? We see that you're still in the session. It looks like your microphone is active, but we don't have your feed. Can you try and unmute your microphone one more time? Costa Rica. We're seeing some audio input on the meter, but we still don't hear or see Costa Rica. We'll just give them one more minute and then we'll move.
Hello.
Hello. We can hear you.
Okay. All right.
Wonderful.
the presentation up?
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead and begin presenting. Welcome and thanks for joining us, Costa Rica.
Thank you. So Costa Rica is located in Central America. It is a small country that can be covered in less than 24 hours. Costa Rica has two main seasons, the rainy and the dry season. The dry season is from mid-November to April, and the rainy season is from May to mid-November. The average temperature in the country is 20 degrees Celsius, but in the tropics, it could go up to 29 degrees Celsius. This country has dry forests, but it's also very rich in rainy forests.
Where does our energy come from? Our energy is run on by 98% renewable energy, and it's one of the global leaders in the use of renewable energy. Most of these renewable sources are hydropower, geothermal, solar, and biomass energy sources. Although most of our electricity is renewable, a lot of the energy consumed is used by the high demand of gasoline because of the amount of cars that are in this country.
Hi, my name is Nikki, and how the climate change directly affects Costa Rica's climate is by causing drastic weather conditions such as droughts and heat waves due to the natural phenomenon called El Niño, which is a climate pattern that impacts the ocean's temperatures, the speed and strength of ocean currents. Costa Rica has had one of the highest deficits in the world since Costa Rica started recording data in 1937. The temperature is expected to increase 3 to 6 degrees Celsius by 2070, which could make our already hot country even hotter.
My name is Alex. I'm going to be discussing some of the sources of climate change in Costa Rica. So two of the main sources of climate change in Costa Rica are the high demand of gasoline, which causes excess amounts of carbon emissions, and the burning of trash in the Guanacaste region, which is the province that we're located in. So surprisingly, Costa Rica has one of the highest car per person ratios in the world. This causes a very high demand for gasoline, but at the same time means the carbon emissions are through the roof. Another negative factor contributing to carbon emissions are the physical states of the cars in Costa Rica. Most cars are in very bad shape, which causes them to emit a higher concentration of carbon emissions, deeming them non-eco-friendly for the road. A lot of people in Guanacaste region have been burning their trash lately. This is due to the lack of garbage trucks from the municipality. Many trash pileups have been created, roads, and people have just resulted in burning the trash to kind of get rid of it, and this is very bad for our environment.
So how has climate change affected other aspects of our region? In Costa Rica, hurricanes used to be something that were very rare and almost unseen. But in the past 2 years, we have been hit by a total of 2 hurricanes, which is something that is very rare and unusual for this country. Also, there has been limited potable water for people living in extreme poverty due to these extreme weather conditions caused by El Niño, including these hurricanes and droughts, and people are left with water that they cannot drink. Tides in Costa Rica have been rising because of the erosion on the beach and how they have created a new terrain to expand and explore, and it can cause many of the towns near beaches to be affected in multiple ways by some houses being flooded and many different things that are not good for this country in general. Because of these tides rising, wells are getting salted because they're so close to the ocean that they are no longer potable, and it's a loss of an essential source of potable water for our region and our country. It also can affect the production of agriculture and cattle raising because this scarcity of water in this country has so that we don't have that water costs way more, and agriculture, like producing rice and raising cattle require a lot of water and become more expensive. So when the prices for these nutrients that are essential for most Costa Rican families, they increase, and it makes it so that people can't access this essential food. And because our country is so hot, there are extreme heat waves that can cause breathing and heart disease that are something that many people are suffering as we see the increase in temperature throughout this country. So our country is directly and indirectly affected by these insane climate changes in our area.
Costa Rica's president, Carlos Alvarado, has made a statement to become carbon neutral by 2021. Although this is a great goal, and we believe it's kind of illogical because the country went through an economical crisis and is now known for not completing objectives on time. Recently, in 2016, Costa Rica made an alliance with Australia to collaborate to improve their sustainable environment and develop their improvement in agriculture.
We think that the most effective solution for our country, because of the high demand of gasoline, is to try to improve the sustainability of public transportation. Since most of the people use buses around here, which are not eco-friendly. And also try to bring down electric cars to decrease the necessity of gasoline in the country.
So we actually called Toyota and asked them a few questions about why they aren't bringing very many electrical cars down to Costa Rica, and they answered with the simple fact that there aren't very many charging stations located in the area. If you want to find a public charging station in the area, you would have to go all the way to the capital, which is San Jose, which is about a 4-hour drive from where we are. Although that's an issue, they do have the solution of bringing hybrid cars down to Costa Rica, where they can run off of gasoline and electricity. Most owners of hybrid cars will most likely have a charging station at home. And if they do run out of charge from their electricity, they can switch to gasoline and run their car off of that. So we think that these solutions can really benefit Costa Rica, and that we hope to see them change the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys have any questions, it'd be a good time to ask.
Yes, we do have some questions. So would somebody like to come up and pose a question from the student group? Nina? Oh, okay.
Hi guys, thank you for presenting. I find it very impressive that your country uses 98% renewable energy. And I was wondering how you guys kind of work toward getting that high usage of renewable energy, and if there's any programs or education systems that perhaps we could try implementing in our different regions.
Can you repeat the question? Our audio kind of cut out there, so you can repeat that.
I can summarize it. She was saying the 98% renewable energy, and what specifically are some strategies that were used in your country to get to such a high percentage of renewables? We can learn from what's worked in Costa Rica.
Well, for us, the biggest way that we figured out how to use these renewable sources is to use the resources that we have in our region. Like, we have large lakes that can produce a lot of electricity due to the power of their currents, and since hydropower is one of the main renewable sources that we use, we take these lakes and rivers and all these things to our advantage that we have in our country, all around the country, to try to create the most use out of our natural resources to create more effective renewable energy sources for our country. And that's one of the main reasons for how using our natural resources.
So another thing is, in 1948, they had removed the army in Costa Rica. So most of our sources and our economics go towards other things such as public schools and also global sustainability.
That's very interesting. Yeah, eliminating your federal military and using that money for environment and education obviously has done you guys very well in terms of meeting some of those goals. Very interesting. One question I have is the use of geothermal energy. So in Costa Rica, you guys have obviously volcanic activity. Is geothermal and tapping into steam vents and the fumaroles, is that something that's a significant portion of your renewable energy, or is that a factor?
Well, geothermal does create around 12% of our energy in renewable energy, and so we went to a geothermal plant when we were in 4th grade, located next to the Miravalles volcano, and it's one of the biggest geothermal plants in this region, and most of them are all located near these large volcanoes that are still currently active, and so it plays a big part. And geothermal and hydropower are our main sources of renewable energy.
Well, I actually had the chance to visit the Miravalles power plant and when I was visiting your school, so I'm glad to hear you guys are still learning about that. We would like to see if RCE Minna or Portland has any questions for Costa Rica. Is RCE Minna available to ask any questions of Costa Rica? It may take a moment, so we'll give them an opportunity to see if they can connect. Okay, it says no question. How about Maida from Portland? Do you have any questions for the folks at La Paz School in Costa Rica?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if your country is working with any other countries that are close by to achieve like the same goals.
Well, talking about nearby countries, we could be talking, about Nicaragua or Panama, and those countries, at least from what I have understood, we have not paired up with them. From what I understood, at least Nicaragua is not very it's not very globally sustainable, right? So, and they haven't really been taking care of their lakes or anything. So there hasn't really been any collaboration.
As we mentioned before, though, we are collaborating with Australia and working towards environmental goals that we both have, but not as if you're referring to countries that are close by. No, we're not seeing a lot of collaboration.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. At this point, I would like to just circle around from the various sites and make sure to hear from any last questions or comments. And so, RCE Minna, do you have any questions or comments for the group before the conclusion? We'll give Arsenna just another moment, and then next we will go to Costa Rica and see if they have any questions for any of the sites or any comments. Let's see if we can hear from Costa Rica. Do you guys have any questions or comments for?
I don't think so, but this is a great experience and glad we were invited. Thank you very much.
thank you all, and your teachers and principals. Say hello to Mr. McLennan for me, Mr. Abel. Thanks for joining us. Grand Rapids, you guys have any questions or comments for anyone else in the group? Okay, and then lastly, let's see if Portland has any closing questions or comments, and then we will proceed with the conclusion.
No, I don't have any, but thank you all for presenting. I really enjoyed listening to all of your presentations, and I definitely learned a lot, and it was a wonderful experience. So thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us, Maida. Appreciate you representing the Pacific Northwest. So, Vince, if you could bring up the conclusion slide. So at this time, I would just like to make note of some of the different sustainability themes and strategies that were prevalent across of the different sites. The first is that energy use and climate change are directly related. Science shows us that, and bringing awareness in our communities is obviously the biggest base, and so that was something that was prevalent across all of the presentations. Education and awareness and creating a sense of urgency was certainly something that everyone mentioned as well. In order for change to occur, people need to have a sense of urgency around creating change. So education and awareness is obviously a sustainability strategy that's very important. Directly following that is commitment. And how do we engage our community in the different sectors of the community, such as political, corporate, community, nonprofit, working together and collaborating to solve these problems, truly the only way in which we'll make gains. So collaboration and community engagement were very prevalent. As far as some of the more finite strategies on a physical scale, the use of renewable energy was persistent across all of the regions. So obviously, as we know, the direct relation between energy use and production and climate change, renewable energy is obviously a strategy. And so how do we renewable energy initiatives and movements within our communities to make that change happen? Water issues was another one that came up across every single presentation. Water issues as it relates to flooding, to drinking water, as it relates to habitat, and also the spread of disease. So, and also energy production. And so the climate change impacts on rainfall and water, obviously very important and something we need to be very much focused on. And I think the last piece that I'll end with that seems to be a strategy that was mentioned repeatedly, and I think is a broader focus for the global community, is resiliency and adaptability. So obviously we want to mitigate climate change, and we should be focused very strongly on that with a sense of urgency. However, many of these changes are already occurring, and many of these changes may not be undone. And so to be a sustainable community, how do we become more resilient and adaptable to be able to sustain our communities amidst a changing climate? And so that topic is something which I hope to explore in an upcoming youth virtual conference. So that is something I would like to get people's feedback on. As we conclude, can you bring up the conclusion slide as a thank you? I just want to say thank you all so much for participating. Thank you to all of the students and teachers and community members who helped to support this effort. I think this is a direct step in taking action towards education and awareness and collaboration. And so it's through these types of initiatives and events that we all create the change that we wish to see. I'll be following up with the organizers from each site to get the first and last names of all of the participating individuals, so a certificate can be mailed out. So I will follow up with an email, but participating students can expect a certificate in the mail of recognition for your participation. This recording will also be available online, and we will the link so it can be shared out and viewed for perpetuity and serve as an archive to this work. And ultimately, I would just like to say we really, I think this is the work that needs to happen in terms of moving the agenda with these important issues such as climate change and sustainability, engaging with people and creating that dialogue, seeking action and not resting with current circumstances. So I encourage you to continue the dialogue, seek additional opportunities such as this to engage in this work, because as really the leaders of tomorrow, engagement with this is critical for all of us. So we appreciate your efforts very, very much. All right, in conclusion, I would just like to say any feedback that you all have as participants that you'd like to share with us in terms of the conference format, any potential changes that could be made. We're totally open to suggestions and seek that feedback. Appreciate everyone's resiliency with the technology today and making it happen. So thanks to everybody and appreciate your support. Have a great rest of your day.